As Washington continues to churn toward impeachment hearings, Michigan keeps fighting its budget battle, while the DIA asked to pass the hat 2 years early. Cool or not cool? And Mitch Albom's most personal story yet, his new memoir, Finding Chica. Today is Sunday, November 10th, 2019, and this is Flashpoint. Hi, welcome to Flashpoint. The colder weather has moved in. We have hit November 10th, and we can pretty much see the holidays from here. But so much for our long winter's nap. This week, Democrats in Congress told us we can expect the impeachment proceedings to run right through the holiday season, wrapped up, though, just before Christmas. And if Michael Bloomberg is really committed to getting into the Democratic run for the White House, that campaign will only intensify, too. But while all of us have been focusing so much on the nation's capital, a lot of other things have been churning. From the budget negotiations in Lansing to more corruption troubles for the United Auto Workers. On Wednesday, we got word that the Detroit Institute of Arts wants a new millage on next spring's ballot. That's a big ask for money that we were told would not be coming. What gives? We're going to talk about that just ahead. And a little bit later, Mitch Albom will be here to talk about his new book, which also means talking about one of the great heartbreaks of his life, and yet one of the most powerful lessons in love that he and his wife Janine could ever experience as they loved and lost their sweet Chica. It's all this morning on Flashpoint. So much talk about this morning, from the UAW corruption mess while trying to negotiate new contracts to a wild situation at Wayne State where several board members believe they have fired President Roy Wilson, who, along with several other board members, believes he's not going anywhere. But I want to start with the DIA's plan for an early ask on a new 10-year millage. And to sort it all out for me this morning, let's bring in the round table. Stephen Henderson is here from Detroit Today on WDET. Chad Livengood's the senior editor of Crain's Detroit Business. Zoe Clark is the host of It's Just Politics on Michigan Public Radio. And Nolan Finley, editorial chief for the Detroit News. And Nolan, let me start with you. I have really enjoyed telling people that Detroit was a city that was largely saved by art. When you get back to it, the effort to save everything that was at the DIA, I think, exposed this love of art, and it helped us then save so many other things, even though there was a lot of, I don't want to make it sound like it was painless coming out of bankruptcy.
It wasn't for a lot of people.
But exactly. But we all seem to have an understanding that we had set the DIA on a path that we thought we understood. Your editorial at the Detroit News takes great issue with their new request.
Well, sure. I mean, they came, when the DIA, before the bankruptcy in 2012, was looking for this millage so that they could get a period of time in which they could build an endowment, an operating endowment, to sustain the DIA without coming to taxpayers. They promised, give us this 10 years and we won't ask for a renewal. They said it over and over and over again. And we supported them. I'm sure they came and told you the same thing. We will not ask for a renewal. And so not only now are they asking for a renewal 2 years early, but they're trying to slip it through on perhaps the most selective, low turnout election of the year during the presidential primary. There's a sleazy feel to that they're trying to, not only have they lied to the voters about their promise, now they're trying to get this thing passed very deceptively. No tax issue should ever be on a presidential primary ballot.
Stephen Henderson, is it just my imagination, or do I feel you moving forward in your seat?
Well, I have pretty close ties with the DIA, and I know what is going on there. If you pick your facts instead of looking at all of them, I guess you can come to any conclusion you want. The truth is that over the last 7 years, the museum has raised their endowment to $230 million. They've also been asked to contribute $100 million to the city's bankruptcy. A bankruptcy they had nothing to do with, really. They didn't cause that. And so without the $100 million going to bankruptcy, they'd be pretty close to the $400 million that they said they wanted to raise. They'd be in better shape than they are now. The truth is that these millages also paid not for the operations of the museum, but for all kinds of services that were added after 2012. There are tens of thousands of school children and seniors that the museum pays to bring to the museum every day. It's open another day of the week that it wasn't open before. And so if you punish the museum by taking this money from them, you're actually not punishing the museum at all. The museum will continue to operate. You're punishing the people who benefit from the museum.
The museum knew it was going to offer these news. That was part of the promise.
Well, that's what counties asked of them. No, that's what counties asked of them with the millages.
If they weren't going to be able to do it, then they shouldn't have made the promise. But
Well, they are able
ballooned
to
their
do it.
spending 50%. They promised to be fiscally responsible and use this period to
All
build
of
an
that spending
endowment,
is from
and
the
they haven't done it.
millages, and it's being spent on the things they were asked to do.
On the point, is it cynical to move it into an election where the electorate is mostly going to be Democrats?
Cynical or opportunistic, of course, but show me one organization that doesn't think this way. They realize that likely there will be a Democratic turnout in March without Republicans. They're looking to raise funds. I'm just shocked at how political the overall debate is about it. It seems to me they asked for this from different leadership, right? The leadership has changed. It's 2 years early. It's not like it's a decade early or something. And it's just a renewal. It's not any bit
It's a
more
renewal
money
they promised not to ask for.
but not for
everything
3 years,
changed
though.
after they asked
and
for
just
it.
a second. And the other thing is it cynical, though, to do it in March? Absolutely. But welcome to 2019. Welcome to American politics. The idea that we're calling anyone out for being political in this day and age is comical.
There's a little bit of a worry. We're going to have a loaded ballot in Wayne County with ballot initiatives. You're going to have possibly the $250 million bonds for the city of Detroit for Mayor Duggan's
for the demolition project,
blight
right?
elimination. You're going to have an after-school millage, which is a tax increase in Wayne County to fund after-school programs. And then you're going to have this other one. I mean, there's going to be some people that are going to say, wait, this is just groups that are just picking the election and front-loading it with all Democrats, because there will not be Republicans unless they come and cross over and try to take out someone or vote Mike Bloomberg as the nominee or something. You're going to have predominantly a bunch of Democrats.
Good wrinkle there.
So here's the other thing that people are eyeing, and this is important. In August, there's going to be a jail millage in Macomb County that is going to bring out a lot of anti-tax voters. Presumably Republicans, who would cost most of these ballot issues heavily at the box. DIA is one of them, right? It passed narrowly in Macomb. I think they were trying to avoid this millage, but you're going to see a lot of people stay away from August because of that turnout in Macomb.
Yeah, but March is going to be extraordinarily low. We should never have tax issues on any elections other than August and November. You want the broadest number of people who will be paying taxes
but you
to
can't do November
participate in the election.
All right, I want to get to a number of other issues here. So, Chad, let's go back to some other money matters, and that's what's going on with the budget fight in Lansing. Governor Whitmer took a huge risk in obviously wiping out $1 billion worth of projects that a lot of people really like. I think she wants us to believe that they've only been put on hold, but we don't have a deal at the moment. What's going to happen?
Yeah, right now, basically, things stand that Senate Majority Leader Mike Shirkey wants the governor to essentially sign away some of her gubernatorial powers involving a really obscure state board called the State Administrative Board that some legislators didn't even know existed 3 or 4 weeks ago. But now it's the center of this entire budget fight. Well, and it's basically always been around to approve contracts, and now because the governor used it to move around $600 million, in contrary to how the legislature wanted money spent, they want her to agree to not do that, and they want an enforceable, what's known as enforceable boilerplate. That's like the new term of the day in Lansing, and they want to be able to make sure that the governor can't do this. She's resisting. She doesn't want to sign away her rights or the rights of the next governor, and give the legislature power. And so now it's just basically a fight over power. She tried to cut a deal with House Speaker Lee Chatfield this week. Senate Majority Leader Mike Shirkey apparently he was not in the room and didn't like that.
Exactly. There, in fact, it sounds like absolutely was a deal between the Republican House Speaker, the Democratic governor. And the thing I've been saying about all of this is right now you've got almost $1 billion of money that is caught up right now in political, I don't know if you want to say games, but this is not a natural disaster. This is not a circa 2000 budget fiscal problems of being in the whole $2 billion. This is a problem that state legislatures and this governor have brought on them to themselves and are now trying to figure out how to get out of it. And they really have no one but to look at in the mirror and go, this is affecting millions of dollars and millions of folks when it comes to safety patrols, foster care programs, Autism Alliance.
Yeah,
which,
I'm not
again,
sure voters
bipartisan.
are singling out this person is to blame. They're just a pox on all your houses.
It's a pox on all of your houses, and it is reminding, I think, a lot of folks of what is going on in D.C. and is exactly what, let's remember this, Governor, and this legislature said they were not going to do at the beginning of the year.
Stephen, your radio program emanates from the campus of Wayne State every weekday morning. Can you tell me what in the heck is going on in that boardroom and administrative offices?
All of us,
I'm not
please.
sure
Yes.
anyone knows. I certainly don't know firsthand, but from what I see from the outside, I mean, this is a pretty bitter political fight playing out in a campus environment and affecting a leader who I think probably hasn't done a whole lot to deserve this kind of distraction from the job he's trying to do. I mean, I think there are things that he's done well. I think there are things that maybe he could do better. This seems not to be about his performance so much as it is about the alliances on that board, and he's sort of caught in the middle. I think it's an embarrassment for the university to be playing out this way. Nolan wrote a piece this week about how hard it would be to attract someone the caliber of Roy Wilson if you fired him under these circumstances.
Apparently,
and that's exactly right.
They didn't like all the attention the MSU board was getting,
Exactly.
apparently, for
being
fabulous
crazy, right?
governance. So they were like, throw me in, coach.
But I mean, this is going to get serious because, as we said, they're not going to be able to attract a new president of his caliber if they run him out. Who would come to this situation? But you also got the accreditation at one of the major medical programs suspended. So you've got people who have spent up to 7 years in this program, not sure now their work is going to be certified. That's serious, and it'll impact their ability to draw students. I think it's time for the governor. 7 of these 8 board members are Democrats. She should have some influence. The governor should step in, see what leverage she can exert to get them to work together. And if she can't, she needs to start selectively removing board members and replacing them with people who will act in the best interest of the university.
There's another bigger business issue right now, and that involves Detroit Medical Center and all the relationships of Wayne State Med School and the doctors' groups. They've had just a really acrimonious relationship. They've been out looking, they've been, at one point they were courting Henry Ford. My editor, Mike Lee, suggested this week that University of Michigan ought to just consider stepping in and buying the DMC, take Wayne State out of the whole equation, just given how toxic it has become in that relationship. So there's more than just Roy Wilson's career on the line here. There's also just the operation of hospitals that serve the poorest children in America.
I would have thought the free tuition announcement would have been the life of the conversation for so much longer. Before we have to wrap it up for the break, I'm really curious from all of you. Michael Bloomberg, should he make a full-throated entry into this, is it a blip or a tidal wave?
I think it could be the opening of a floodgate. I don't think he's the only person who's looking at the field and the race now and thinking maybe I could do better for Democratic voters. There was a story about Eric Holder thinking about it this week. I think this is going to be the story going forward.
Michael Bloomberg is not going to win the Iowa caucuses, but if he goes to Super Tuesday, tries to and goes on television in Texas and California, Joe Biden doesn't have money to go on TV in Texas and California, but Bloomberg could. He could just run a separate campaign and wait for everyone to get there exhausted and out of money.
No money worries.
I don't see it happening. I don't. I think voters are already paying attention to some of the candidates, and someone this late, I don't know.
I think they're paying attention, but they're not like what they've seen. And Michael Bloomberg scored a big victory in Virginia, basically bought the House for Democrats there. I think he's riding a high.
Got to leave it there, gang. When we come back, Mitch Albom here to talk about his new book, Finding Chica. Thanks very much, friends.